Good afternoon, I'm Raylene Ramsey. This is your afternoon news fix for Tuesday, the 30th of January. The Defence Minister's adamant we're right to deploy personnel to the Red Sea. The government last week announced 6 Defence Force members would support action against Houthi, who have been striking commercial shipping. Speaking in the House, Judith Collins says the attacks are hitting Kiwis' back pockets.
We cannot sit back and wait for someone else to sort it out for us. So for the benefit of members opposite, I'll say it again, New Zealanders are not freeloaders, we are going to do our bit.
Experienced NZSAS personnel have been offered up to $30,000 not to quit, with warnings the unit's near collapse because of how many personnel are leaving. About a third of the uniformed workforce have left since 2021, most citing poor pay. It's one of 2 Defence Force units offered a special payment, along with the Navy's Marine Engineer and Mechanics unit. James Shaw will stick around to back a last piece of legislation before quitting politics. The Greens co-leaders announced he'll stand down in March, but remain an MP to back his Sustainable Environment Bill's first reading. The Bill of Rights amendment seeks to clarify the right for New Zealanders to live in a survivable environment. Shaw says it was authored by Lawyers for Climate Action years ago and is backed by more than 50 members of the King's Council.
I feel I've got an obligation to shepherd that through, and I think if it were a conscience vote, there is a chance we could make it law.
Jabs have been flying in the House this afternoon as MPs settled in their seats for this year's first question time. Labour's Grant Robertson was quick to make a crack, questioning Finance Minister Nicola Willis and also setting his sights on the ACT leader.
How can she reconcile the inclusion of corrections in the departments to be cut with the commitment in the coalition agreement with ACT to increase its funding, or is this going to be another example of David Seymour's political impotence?
And not to be outdone, moments later, Seymour fired back.
How did the government manage to spend so much more money and yet get so much worse results? And is that an example of the previous finance minister's fiscal incontinence?
Dunedin police are still examining the scene of a death in Liberton and asking for reports of unusual activity on the street beforehand. 27-year-old Gurjit Singh was found outside a broken window at his Hillary Street home yesterday. He allegedly had security concerns after a suspected break-in days earlier. Police say investigators are talking to family, friends and colleagues, establishing Singh's movements before his death. To sport headlines, and the Phoenix's Director of Football, Sean Gill, is asking the A-League to review its disciplinary regulations in the wake of the one-game ban handed down to women's team goalkeeper Riley Foster. A blow for the Tall Ferns in their bid to reach the Paris Olympics, with guard Charlize Leger-Walker ruled out of next week's qualifiers in China after suffering a knee injury. No long-term guarantees around the Melbourne Rebels' future, despite confirmation the franchise's men's and women's teams will feature in their respective 2024 Super Rugby competitions. I'm Raylene Ramsey. That is your latest news fix. We'll be back with the next update tomorrow morning from the Newstalk ZB newsroom.